this is where I need to, sound off a little bit about Maduro, about Venezuela, and about Latin American sovereignty more broadly,
Please.
because so much of the last, 25, 30 years, I mean, arguably since the United States turned its, Sauron gaze away from its own hemisphere and to the Middle East,
Mm.
right? Because of the war on terror. Actually, it's been a very wonderful time to be in Latin America. There have been more progressive presidents and legislators elected. They have enjoyed a rejection of neoliberal economics, whereby all of the national wealth, whether it be minerals or oil or national production, instead of going abroad to foreign companies, has stayed at home, has built up national infrastructure in these countries, whether it's Lula in Brazil, whether it was the Kirchners in Argentina. There are problems with all of these people, whether, multiple series of more progressive presidents in Chile, in Ecuador, in many, many, many other countries, right? So this has actually been kind of an incredible moment for Latin America. And without getting into a broad analysis of what went wrong and why they were not able to capitalize on more gains, here we are back to, oh no, Western American imperialism in its own hemisphere, Project Condor, Project, Plan Colombia, which is all about repressing local populations in service of American corporate interests and working with the 1% of these nations in order to impoverish and extract as much wealth as they can from the people of Latin America. And so as we are hearing these narratives of Venezuelans are celebrating, are super happy, hated Maduro. Number one, let's remember that Iraqis were celebrating. Let's remember that Libyans were celebrating. Let's remember that people can hold two things at once. They don't like their current leader, but they also don't want to be invaded by a foreign entity and have their oil extracted from underneath their feet. Now, here's what's important to know if you really didn't like Maduro and wanted him gone. And to be fair, Maduro is not a good president, okay? He is an autocrat.
Terrible.
He's a terrible president. He is an autocrat. He took the legacy of Chavez, which was all about, again, boosting ending poverty, boosting literacy, expanding education programs, expanding even, there were programs that were like, media programs in like the shanty towns, and like even people who hated Chavez's guts benefited from the Chavez regime, right? Like truly, it was, as they called it, Bolivarian socialism for the 21st century. And it was all about nationalizing the oil in order to benefit the Venezuelan people, not the 1% of Venezuelans. And if you meet Venezuelans in the United States, there is a high likelihood, not now, but let's say 10 years ago, before there was more of an influx of immigrants. But 10, 15, 20 years ago, when Chavez first came into power, you might meet Venezuelans and they'd be like, Chavez is terrible.
Yeah.
And my family owned an oil company. And you're like, aha, there, I see it. So your family was forced to sell their oil company for the benefit of the nation. And hey, that sucks for you and your family. But guess what? The entire country was lifted up because y'all were hoarding this wealth for a very, very long time. I encourage people to watch an old documentary, a great documentary called The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. It is about the attempted coup on Chavez multiple times. The point is that this is when we talk about the oil. This just means we want to return the oil to the rich Venezuelan 1% and the rich American corporations that worked with that 1% in order to exploit the Venezuelan people. That's all that means. It means we don't want Venezuela to keep any of that money for themselves. Now, back to Maduro. If you want Maduro gone, here's what you do. You actually support a healthy Venezuelan society so that they have the tools and the ability to rise up against and practice democracy and make changes within their own country. And what you do is you end U.S. sanctions on Venezuela because, number one, Venezuelan sanctions on Venezuela are hurting Venezuelan people. So what do? if you hate immigrants, well, they're coming to your country because of the sanctions. So you might want to fucking lift those so they can live more, and prosper. But also, it is dooming the sanctions have been dooming the economy. The economy's been fucked because of the sanctions, and that is it's a huge wave. American imperialism in general thinks that you have to squeeze people. You should corner them and that will make them react. No, because what was Maduro doing? Maduro was using the sanctions as a rationale for why he should stay in power, saying, look at these US imperialists, look at them doing all this, you support me, hey, we hate that, that they're invading our country and our sovereignty. But if you remove that, then he no longer has that talking point to lean on, truly, right? And again, I'm not advocating to have to fund these pro-democracy programs in Venezuela that really are kind of about subversive kind of soft coup attempts and blah, blah, blah. But I am saying that sanctions fucking fail. They always hurt the people and they never hurt the actual people in power. So that's number one. If you actually wanted Maduro gone, you welcome Venezuela into the world. You are honest about them being drug traffickers or not, which they are not. So I think that needs to be understood. And then lastly, Waj, what comes is worse.
Yeah.
Comes is worse. Because there is nothing like US empire to radicalize and a society into saying, oh, fuck the United States. Fuck them trying to run our oil business. I'm for anyone, because there's going to be backlash. There's going to be massive to say nothing of casualties, to say nothing of violence, to say nothing of what comes now. But if you hate socialism, if you fucking hate socialism, you should be against this 1,000,000%, because there's nothing that's going to guarantee more of a reignited socialist revolution than what the United States is doing right now. I hate to break that to you. And if you really believe that US empire works, I would direct you to all of the fucking instances, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's Iraq, whether it's the Shah of Iran, where we can go back and see every time a US puppet has been supported, whether in Latin America or the Middle East, they always make it worse and they always fall. In fact, sometimes, ironically, they fall because the US reinvades, a la Saddam Hussein, a guy we supported, or Gaddafi, a guy we supported. So again, this whole Pinochet, oh my God. I mean, Pinochet, the dictatorships in Argentina, the dictatorships in Brazil, the dictatorships in Uruguay, all of the dictatorships were like this with US empire, were like this. And and Central America, to say nothing of the death squads, the amount of murder, all in the service of, American enterprise. And here we are again in the year 2025. And so again, final little, if there are Latin Americans, listening to me, we have to wise the fuck up. Because I love the region, but this is a wake up call. And the only leader that seems to be taking it seriously, and obviously because he's a neighbor of Venezuela, is, Gustavo Petro of Colombia, who's like, we need to call this what it is.
Well, it's also because he went after